Good morning, and welcome to First Unitarian Universalist Church of Rochester. We're a church of open minds and loving hearts, celebrating many sources of wisdom and many spiritual paths. Your faith, your doubts, your questions, your identities are welcome here. Special welcome to visitors and newcomers. We're glad you're here. There's a preschool playroom that's open throughout the morning and activities for kids following the time for all ages. After service, all are welcome to join us for refreshments down in the Commons, where you can find ways to get involved in the life of the church and in the community. Today and for the next couple weeks, downstairs in the Commons, we have special sign-up tables inviting you to sign up for small groups or classes, multiple ways to volunteer within the church and beyond as well. You can find more by picking up a Get Involved packet or just simply talking to folks at the table there to learn more about all the opportunities to connect with others and to volunteer. So you can see those or in your e-news as well if you have any questions or need more information to get involved. There's a lot happening in our church this fall, so you can read your e-news to stay up to date on important things. Here's a few highlights. Walden Hill Wednesdays have returned with our weekly Wednesday night supper. Cook teams prepare a delicious meal, and that's followed by various forums or programs. But the third week of each month, we're doing dinner conversations. So this week's topic during dinner will be about the building preliminary designs from Locus Architects to gather feedback, to have conversation and reflections. So you can come with thoughts, and members of the Building Our Future team will be at tables to take notes so they can bring that feedback to Locus Architects. There's also a survey that went out this week to offer your thoughts as well online. So find some way to join the conversation. We'd love to know your thoughts as we continue this process. And then today at 1:30, we'll have a ceremony of dedication at our new location at the southeast corner of Viola Road and East Circle Drive, right across from Century High School. We'll gather there on some fairly bumpy ground, but you're welcome to bring a chair. So we're inviting folks today to park at Century High School, and then there'll be some shuttles back and forth to bring you over, or if there isn't much traffic, you can safely traverse across there as well. We'll have some water and some shade, but the weather looks lovely as well. So a ceremony of dedication with music and poetry as we mark this time as our relationship with that land that is now in our care. All are welcome, and there'll also be an offering box, so you're not surprised there, to support the Building Our Future Fund. While a capital campaign will come in time, all the work we're doing now also takes some funds and support. So if you're able to pitch in a little bit while we're out there today, you're welcome to do that. So 1:30, corner of East Circle Drive and Viola Road. All are welcome. And today our entire offering collection goes out our doors to support our monthly Justice Partner Family Promise. And Executive Director Aaron Sinwell is here to speak about their work. Aaron, come on up.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Family Promise is previously known as IHN, or Interfaith Hospitality Network, and we've been helping families experiencing homelessness in our community since 1991. We used to operate on a church rotation model, that IHN name that I was referring to, where families would stay a week at a time at different church communities in our community. COVID happened and we had to change how we operated, so we purchased a property in the Kutsky Park area near the United Way building, and we call it the North Star House. We have 2 offices and 3 bedrooms, so we can currently house 3 families at a time. In addition to meals, shelter, and case management, we also offer education, and we have twice monthly life skill classes. We do have a wait list. Pre-COVID, our wait list was about 12 to 15 families. We have found an increase since COVID, and right now our wait list is at 36 families. We're at an all-time high in our community. A little bit about our wait list. It's not a first come, first serve. It is a priority wait list. So if there's someone living out of their vehicle, if there's someone camping, living outside, they would be put to the top of our list. We also give priority to individuals who are living in Olmsted County who have already been living here. So if someone were to call, let's say from Chicago, and say they would like to come here to be in our shelter, they can definitely be on our wait list, but they might not be at the top of our wait list. We feel like the number one reason we are seeing with families right now for experiencing homelessness is affordable housing. A lot of times our families come to us and already have jobs, but they just might need a little bit of time to save up money, whether it be for down payment or security deposit, applications for apartments. So families can stay with us for up to 4 months. We are in talks with Olmsted County on a new facility, which we are really excited about. It's been kind of in the works for about a year with conversations. So we're still on the path there. I know that there's some votes that need to happen coming up. They have already purchased a facility for us, and it is southeast, kind of behind Aaron Sanity South. And that facility will be able to house 8 to 12 families. So we're really excited about being able to help more families at a time. With that is going to become increased operational costs. So we are really hoping that the community will continue to partner with us to make that happen. We kind of have a tentative opening date of March 2024, but we just heard that there are quite a few renovations that need to happen in the facility. A lot of it is just getting up to code with electrical and plumbing. So it's not like it's going to be a palace with chandeliers or anything like that, but just kind of some renovations and getting it so there can be that many individuals on site. And I just want to give a big thank you to your congregation. Not only have you been a partner and monetary supporter of ours for a number of years, we have a board member from your congregation, we have a committee member, we have a very involved coordinator, and a number of volunteers. So we're really grateful for your partnership. Thank you.
So you can give as the plates pass or anytime online. Thank you, Aaron, for that work and for being here this morning. For today's music, the musicians invite that you let the music rest in silence and save any applause to the end of the service and let the sounds reverberate in this space. Appreciation can be shared with sign language or a hand on the heart, or just hold it and share your words after service as well, as we enter into some meditative music from some special sounds this morning too that Rose will introduce in a little bit. In a moment, our opening hymn will call us back, but I invite you now to rise in body or spirit and greet those around you.
Ready? This is breaths. Listen more often to things than to beings. Listen more often to things than to beings. 'Tis the ancestors' breath when the fire's voice is heard. 'Tis the ancestors' breath in the voice of the waters. Who have died have never, never left. The dead are not under the earth. They are in the rustling trees. They are in the groaning woods. They are in the crying ancestors' breath. When the fire's voice is heard, 'tis the ancestors' breath in the voice of the waters. Whoosh, ah, whoosh, ah, whoosh, ah.
Our chalice lighting words are attributed to Sufi mystic poet Hafiz. Even after all this time, the sun never says to the earth, "You owe me." Look what happens with a love like that. It lights up the whole sky.
So in lieu of more music this morning, the following audio comprises a series of field recordings from the morning of Wednesday, September 13th on the new church property at the corner of East Circle Drive and Viola Road. The soundscapes are presented in order of location, starting from the top of the hill and then following the path down along the east side all the way to the retention pond at the southern border. I would encourage you to close your eyes and allow yourself to become immersed in the scenes around you. It'll last about 5 minutes. And listen closely to see if you can recognize and identify any familiar sounds, whether natural or human.
I'd like to invite the children forward, or anybody who might want to join them. Good morning. How is everyone today? You want to just have a seat right here in front? So last week when we went downstairs, we talked about different ways to make people feel welcome. And we talked about offering them something to drink, like water in particular. But what are some other ways we can make people feel welcome? Go ahead, Ian, or Daphne. Give them shelter, yeah, kind of like what they were talking about earlier, right? Have them come in and stay with you. Well, today we're going to talk about different ways that we can welcome, because different people have different ways they can welcome others, right? Sometimes what do people do? They go, hello, nice to meet you, and they shake a hand, or they wave. What does a dog do when they say hello? Go ahead. Wag their tails. Brinley? Yeah, they smell other dogs. Bark. They'll be excited to say hi, right? And sometimes cats will like brush themselves up against your legs. So there's all different kinds of ways that people say hello and welcome in. So that's what our story is about today. It's just about different ways that we can say, welcome, join us. It is by Linda Ashman with pictures by Joey Chow. Right away. Waves and shakes and warm hellos. Eyes to eyes and nose to nose. Soothing words, an expert guide, and showing someone around, be welcoming, so then they can be comfortable. Step by step and side by side. Do you feel welcome in your classroom at school? Cheery classroom, friendly grin. Good to meet you. Come on in. Helping hands, a rescued hat, cups of tea, and a lively chat. A work of art or a small bouquet. Look, he's giving her flowers, a little bouquet of flowers. An invitation, hey, let's play. A book-filled room, a song, a rhyme. Have a seat, it's story time. Is that what we're doing right now? Having story time? A sniff, a pat, a gentle hug, a comfy bed that's safe and snug. Giving shelter, right? A homemade sign. We did some of that last week, didn't we? Made some signs down in the commons. Excited cheers, a special gift, and happy tears. Oh. Blooms to buzz, a splashy bath. Starter homes on a shady path. What kind of starter homes are those? Right there. Bird houses. Shelter from the rain and heat. Garden treasures, tart and sweet. An offering, a smiling face that lights an unfamiliar face or space. Can a smile say you're welcome here? Yeah. A welcome can be warm or cold. What's the cold welcome here?
Ice cream.
Sharing some ice cream. shy and quiet, or big and bold. Meant for someone new and small, or maybe not so new but very tall. It sends a message loud and clear. What do you think that message is? Let's see. Hello, friend. I'm glad you're here. So are we ready to go down and do some more welcoming? Yeah? The children's benediction will be played. The lyrics are in the back inside cover of your gray hymnal.
When I was a young kid, I spent much of my time in the woods. My friends and I would somehow acquire some hammers and old nails, and we would set out to the woods to see what we could build from fallen logs, random wood scraps, and large branches. The result could be a bench, a chair, or even a rudimentary structure. After a bit, we would tire of our building adventures and would decide that biking or rollerblading would be a much better way to pass our summer days. Today, I wonder what people may think as they come upon this random mashup of chairs and benches and structures in the little woods behind the trailer park I grew up in. 2 years ago, I went on a 3-day, 2-night backpacking trip on the Superior Hiking Trail, and it was magical. The woods welcomed us with mesmerizing sights, a tree cover when it got too hot, and a memorable forest patch full of dense trees and ominous fog that me and my friends deemed the woods of the witches. While on the trail, I marveled at the ecosystem, always renewing each year, and because it's a relatively untouched wilderness, coming back just as beautiful as the year before. I have always found the woods and forests full of mystery, comfort, and peace. However, I did not know how amazing they were until I learned about how trees communicate and function in community. In his book, The Hidden Life of Trees, forester Peter Wolben describes how trees can communicate with each other, support each other, learn from experience, and form alliances with other inhabitants of the forest. He notes that the trees need each other to survive. In fact, trees develop a communication network by connecting their roots through a system of underground fungi. They also use this root system to share nutrients and send chemical signals to warn other trees of danger. It's so cool. In forests, seedlings more often perish as they are not able to connect to these underground conduits. But if they make it just a couple years and the older trees sense that their root is getting close to their established roots, they join up, and the old trees give their strength to the new seedlings that are starting to grow. They welcome them into the community. Today, we'll be dedicating our new land, and we'll bring our community, where we will bring our strong root system, one that nourishes, protects, and challenges, one that is so important to all of us. I know that we will be able to welcome our new seedlings, whether they are new friends, members, or little ones.
And in that welcome, we'll share our strength, our roots, so they can thrive. We will now accept the offering.
Here comes the beekeeper with a pitcher full of smoke. She'll put us all to sleep. I hope it's dreamless and it's deep. Sweet Prometheus, come home. They took away our fire, and all that scarcity promotes is desperate men and time. What fine design, what hands, what minds, the envy of Eden, our tools and our reasons, it's clear in the animal's eyes. We stand upright, build fires at night, made on the sixth day to rest on the seventh, and now we just try to survive. The surgeon and farmer meet, and each greets the other with a bow. They're kindred instruments, you know, the scalpel and the plow. And in the shadow of the mountain, we work when work abounds, and we wear out all our prayers when the work runs out. What fine design, what hands, what minds, the envy of Eden, our tools and our reasons, it's clear in the animal's eyes. We stand upright, build fires at night, made on the sixth day to rest on the seventh, and now we just try to survive.
invite you to take a deep breath. Breathe deep the breath of life. Feel below you the earth and its ancient turning. Above you the sky, and beyond that the stars shining with its ancient light, holding you in this moment, this breath. You yourself made of earth and stars, know that in this house you are named and known as beloved, as sacred. I invite you into this time of meditation, this time of prayer, first by sharing silence together. Spirit of life, source of love, God and Gaia of many names and beyond all naming. At any given moment, it doesn't feel like the earth is moving really. It seems so solid, so fixed. And the only way to traverse it, it seems, is for us to move. And yet we know it's moving 1,000 miles an hour. And so it is with the soul, where one moment it feels solid and fixed, rooted in place. We know it is moving, shifting, growing in ways that we are aware of and ways we are not, at 1,000 miles an hour. Help us know that roots don't just go down, but they spread out wide. And as we move and as we grow and become what we are yet to be, help us remember that roots and stories and love can keep up with us and go with us wherever we are any day, at any moment. May we be instruments of love in this world, noticing the beauty of the world around us, being honest about harm done by ourselves or others, that we might live in the ways of reconciliation and healing and peace. Hold in our hearts this day all those who suffer in mind, body, or spirit. I invite you to bring the names you're holding in your own heart this day in joy or sorrow, celebration or concern, and silently or aloud now in this time, just speak their names. For all the names spoken and unspoken, may we all be held in love and grace. As our Jewish friends begin the high holy days with Rosh Hashanah, we wish them a sweet new year with these words of meditation from Rabbi Rachel Berenblatt, who goes by the Velveteen Rabbi. They're right. Suddenly, the 2 stately trees outside my window are shot through with sprays of gold. My heart rails against the turning season like a child resisting bedtime, but the trees hear the shofar's call. Come alive and flare up and be who you are and let your light shine. The katydids and crickets sing, the time is now. This year the trees razzle-dazzle speaks to me in my mother's voice. Be here while you can. Drink every drop of daylight. And when night falls, don't be afraid. It's filled with stars. May it be so. Amen. We're going to sing together Circle Round for Freedom. Rose, Joe, and I will introduce it once through, and we invite you to sing with us twice. It's in your order of service. The lyrics are up here as well. You can remain seated as we sing.
Circle round for freedom, circle round for peace.
For all of us imprisoned,
planet, circle for each soul. For the children of our children, keep the circle whole. Circle round for freedom, circle round for peace,
For all of us imprisoned, circle for release, circle for the planet, circle for each soul, for the children of our children, keep the circle whole. Circle round for freedom, circle round for peace, for all of us imprisoned, circle for release, circle for the planet, circle for each soul, for the children of our children, keep the circle whole.
The first reading is The Moment by Margaret Atwood. That moment when, after many years of hard work and a long voyage, you stand in the center of your room, house, half acre, square mile, island, country, knowing at last you got there and say, I own this. It is the same moment when the trees unloose their soft arms from around you, the birds take back their language, the cliffs fissure and collapse, the air moves back from you like a wave, and you can't breathe. No, they whisper, you own nothing. You were a visitor, time after time, climbing the hill, planting the flag, proclaiming, we never belonged to you. You never found us. It was always the other way around. The second reading, My House is the Red Earth by Joy Harjo. My house is the red earth. It could be the center of the world. I've heard New York, Paris, or Tokyo called the center of the world, but I say it is magnificently humble. You could drive by and miss it. Radio waves can obscure it. Words cannot construct it, for there are some sounds left to sacred, wordless forms. For instance, that fool crow picking through the trash near the corral understands the center of the world as greasy strips of fat. Just ask him. He doesn't have to say that the earth has turned scarlet through fierce belief after centuries of heartbreak and laughter. He perches on the blue bowl of the sky and laughs.
It's amazing what sound can do, and how the presence of a whole nother habitat comes into our mind and heart and space. Thank you for that. And speaking of that space, it began with a simple idea: to find a way to hold in our hands the natural world and to feel tangibly our connection with the land. We had images of a very sweet little ritual for the dedication this afternoon, holding something natural and living that helped us feel the space between now and not yet, between here and there, our church moving in time to a new place, a new site that we are now called to care for but cannot live there quite yet. But we could find a way to still feel it, we were sure. The sentiment wrote itself, the ritual wrote itself, so what could we find among the land there to have our community hold in their hands? Well, because of the lovely trees there were acorns galore. Great idea. Yes, acorns. We'll have baskets of acorns. We'll share them with each other. We'll bring them home with us, or maybe bring them back when we break ground for some other ritual. So these lovely volunteers had this wonderful idea. And two of them, Greg and Catherine, were coming up from the land while the staff had gathered there to plan this site dedication, and gave me a handful of acorns and said, "Here's the first batch of them." And they gave me some water for the water communion before last week to bring. These salt of the earth saints holding our future in their hands. So I placed these little acorns in my car cup holder to bring them to church the next morning. The next morning, in my car, the acorns were moving. It's a slightly disconcerting thing to see things moving in your cup holder in the morning. So these little worm-like creatures, apparently, these were their homes. And we had taken their home, and they then revolted and came to life and said, "No." It was really disgusting. And so I asked Catherine and Greg, maybe we need another plan? And they said, yes, same thing happened to us. Let's not hand out maggots to the congregation. Fair. Sacred animals, sacred species as they are, no, wasn't going to work. So we came up with a different plan, which you'll understand later today, much more simple, much less taking things from the land, which was a good reminder. Or as Margaret Atwood writes, after many years of hard work, a long voyage, you stand in the center of your room, house, half acre, and you say, "I own this." And you go through a purchase agreement and the tools of a social capitalistic construct of ownership of the natural world. And you say, "We own this. Let's gather it up and take it in." It's the same moment when the trees unloose their soft arms from around you and the birds take back their language and the cliffs fissure and collapse. "No," they whispered, "you own nothing," and they come alive wherever you try to take them. The whole system of land ownership, especially in the United States, is a complicated history, as you likely know, and rooted in many complicated stories and relationships, and often very oppressive histories. From the violence used against indigenous people, even amidst seemingly technical legal treaties that were often filled with deception and trickery. Access to traverse land, even those considered owned by others, has a varied history in the United States too. From some of the earliest U.S. cases at state levels in the 1818 and 1820 that actually granted access to hunters that didn't own the land, saying it caused no harms for hunters to be on any countryside land, even if someone else owned it. Georgetown law professor and former National Park Ranger Brian Sawers wrote about this recently, emphasizing that really until 1865, so remember that date, the end of the Civil War, the enforcement and the criminalization of trespassing on countryside lands was uncommon. Following the Civil War, these laws were often used in an effort to limit movement and migration of former enslaved people now free. or in later history in an effort to restrict immigrants from hunting or fishing. It was a way to enforce laws sometimes referred to as black code laws or similar to Jim Crow laws, limiting the ability for marginalized people, especially black people, to freely move around the countryside, which had been commonplace for decades and decades, and using land-based skills in earning money or gaining financial stability. And the question comes, who does the earth belong to? And how do we belong to it? Professor Sars wrote, "Despite what these signs would have us believe, an open countryside is not un-American. We had one set of laws for centuries, and now we have a contrary set, which originated in Southern landowners' efforts to compensate themselves for the abolition of slavery. And given that history, this much is certain," he writes, "any claim that private property owners have a natural right to restrict access is false. And there was a time before we closed the countryside, and there can be a time when we reopen it." Intermingled in our own Unitarian history, the Boston Common, in the midst of our Unitarian and Universalist roots, was the first public park in the United States. The residents shared the cost to have a central place primarily for livestock to graze. It was a place to bring their cows and their animals, in theory. The great idea of a common, this common space, and the idea that Massachusetts as a state was not a state but a commonwealth where they shared resources was a wonderful value in principle of shared resources, shared spaces. And yet, of course, that space became a common public space for the worst of our humanity as well, like many places. It became a location of public violence and hangings, enslaved people, women deemed as witches, even pacifist Quakers like Mary Dyer, whose statue now stands atop the hill overlooking the common, was killed in the commons for her Quaker beliefs. Who is welcome as part of the common land, and who is not? Even the idea of roads, when you start looking into all these public spaces, which were intended throughout Europe and in the earlier parts of colonized America, they were meant for pedestrians. And it wasn't until the influx of not only the manufacturing of cars and the increased pace of commerce that car manufacturers had to mount a public campaign to change the image of automobiles to be welcome on the road. It wasn't simply the existence of cars that changed things. For years, they were seen as being unnecessary, a dangerous nuisance on public walkways, drivers being called murderers for the danger they posed to public space. Eventually, because of changes in industry and social practice and quite a bit of the power of capitalistic marketing, the roads were taken over by automobiles. And while we all know technically pedestrians always have the right of way, I don't know about you, but it doesn't always seem to work that way when I'm out on the roads. Can't count how many times actually each week vehicles don't stop for my family or others in the crosswalk on 16th Street in South Rochester, or they go partly into the crosswalk and then sheepishly, almost like a moving confessional, back up when they see people crossing. And you can see like the fear in their eyes as my determined 7- and 10-year-old bear down on them with pedestrian righteousness, like, this is where I'm going. And then the bikes and the greenway lanes are a whole other topic about sharing the road. It seems the less embodied we become by the separation of machinery or metal, or the less aware we are of the potential danger we can pose, it's as if we see each other as moving metal boxes in the world, instead of, in that car is this person that I know is mortal and fragile. It comes easier to care less if we have these protective mechanisms around us. In so many of these situations, years in the past or in the last few days, it isn't necessary that all these people are evil and uncaring and want to run people over. In fact, my namesake, Royer, means cart people. Like we were about wheels and carts and movements. That's what we were. It was just kind of why I like cars. But there's also a complicated history there. The fact is, we are, all of us, to varying degrees, part of larger systems and practices and assumptions about what we own, who is welcome where, It has to do with a type of individualism and ownership, the ability to control what is ours and what is not yours. At its best, spirituality, Unitarian Universalism included, or simple civic ethics, is a way of believing in a world that flips these notions a bit toward common space, common resources, that we all take part, that we all do our share and are cared for, that we have that ability collectively, including public spaces and public lands that are truly open to all. The idea of common space and who is allowed and not to occupy public lands is a fraught history, and it's not just in history. It's alive and well. Who does the land belong to? How do we belong to the land? You own nothing, writes the poet. Just this week, I gathered with various faith leaders here in the church. It kind of seemed like the beginning of a joke as it was happening. A Lutheran, a Methodist, a Presbyterian, a Congregationalist, and Episcopalian walk into a Universalist church. And they did on Thursday. And we gathered, and we often gather with this group of faith leaders, and among many things that we discussed, one with our Interfaith Coalition, Isaiah, was talking about a local conversation about an ordinance about folks experiencing homelessness and where and how they are allowed or not to dwell on public land. Right now is actually a good time, if you're interested, to engage with local leaders about this, political, social services, and more, like our justice partner, Family Promise, or others, many others in the community, about how do we destigmatize homelessness and poverty. In many communities, ours included, I wonder what our goals are sometimes. When you hear comments or even reactions within you about what is the actual concern about homeless dwellings. Maybe some are legitimate and some are not. Is it about spaces that feel neat and tidy, that we want the streets to look pretty and clean? Is it about true sanitary conditions? Is it about perhaps discomfort with poverty in our proximity to it? And the idea that it exists in a world-class medical town. And then how does the ethical, compassionate heart respond, not framing it first as public nuisance, but as a matter of human dignity? How have we as a society failed people who are unhoused or poor, with lack of adequate public resources for shelter, access to bathrooms, with access to mental health and social workers? And how might we provide a type of community that is world-class care at every single level? The old prophet's words keep ringing. How are we caring for the least of these, the least resources, those with the least access? Because that is the marker of an ethical society. So there are good conversations happening right now here in Rochester and other places about what constitutes public safety, about what if we responded to situations less with armed officers and more with social workers or similar, providing resources instead of punishment. What if we keep working for a world, and God bless the ones who continue to do it day in and day out, a world where we held each other's flourishing and well-being in common, where we hold the land and its bounty and its care in common. The root for the word common also means motion or commotion. That to hold things in common requires a bit of movement so that there's enough room and care for all of us. My house is the red earth. It could be the center of the world, writes Indigenous poet Joy Harjo. She says, I say it is magnificently humble. You could drive by and miss it. Radio waves could obscure it. Words cannot construct it, for there are some sounds left to sacred, wordless form. Who does the land belong to? How do we belong to the land? I have to believe in a world where our way of building community can be understood first as a matter of dignity, of humans and otherwise, as a matter of shared resources, as a matter of care for the land which perhaps nobody can or should be able to own. But instead we use our tools that are simply put us as owners of something to be in relationship with, as responsibility to care. I have to believe in that type of world that there is more joy and possibility, not from easily fixing all the complications in one fell swoop. All these things are complicated, but that the soul might feel a bit more free and empowered if it knows it's living in right relationship, or at least aspirationally toward a different and better world. And perhaps we can learn from some spirit guides like that fool crow, writes the poet. Living here at this part of the arc of centuries of heartbreak and laughter, perching on the blue bowl of the sky and laughing, and knowing that, yes, we are all guests and all welcome, and our first and gracious host, this earth, is holding us and asking us together to flourish. The hymn is For the Earth Forever Turning. I invite you to rise in body or spirit as we sing. Invite you, as you're comfortable, place a hand toward your heart or toward the sky or the earth in gratitude, and breathe deep the breath of life. Go yonder, and gather the people. Give them not hell, but courage and hope. Give them something of the love you have found here, and tell all the people that love is our home. Amen.
Birds flying high, you know how I feel. Sun in the sky, you know how I feel. Breeze drifting on by, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day. It's a new life for me, yeah. It's a new dawn, it's a new day. It's a new life for me. and I'm feeling good. Fish in the sea, you know how I feel. River running free, you know how I feel. Blossom on the tree, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me, and I'm feeling good. Dragonfly out in the sun, you know what I mean, don't you? Butterflies all having fun, you know what I mean. Sleep in peace when day's done, that's what I mean. And this old world is a new world and a bold world for me. Yeah. Stars when you shine, you know how I feel. Scent of the pine, you know how I feel. Oh, freedom is mine, and I know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me.